All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So, as you can see from the background, I am no longer in Stanford. I am back home now. I finished my time of chemo, so I'm glad to be back, and I'm can't wait to start this lesson because this is one of those lessons I love to be in class and really go over and explain it and things like that because we're going to be talking about one of the most fascinating men in world history. Honestly, in my personal list, he's like in the top five of the most fascinating people in the ancient world, and that is Alexander the Great. So, the objective today, we're going to analyze the role Alexander had on history. We're going to examine the battles and victories that he had to expand the Macedonian Empire. We're going to show you exactly how big it was at first, and then basically when he died, how big was his empire. And it may not seem like much, but when we get to it, I'll be able to explain the significance of his empire. And then we're going to create an argument at the end of, does Alexander truly deserve that title, the Great? When people say Alexander, you have to put the Great, and then people say, oh yeah, yeah, that guy. It's just connected with him, Alexander the Great. But does he really deserve it? That's what we're going to look at today, and then we're going to see what you personally believe. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the warm up. So, uh, there's your warm up picture, and as you can see from the bottom, the two guys are talking, and one of them says, "He conquered the known world. Now all he got is Sudoku." And if you've never played that game, it's fun, challenging, but you know. So my question is, what do you think this artist is trying to say about Alexander? Okay, so look at the facial expression of Alexander. Look what the guy is saying. What is he actually doing? You know, um, what is Sudoku also? Is it something that's mandatory that everyone do? Is it something people do when they have time? And what is it? So that all that stuff together should help you answer this question a little bit easier. Okay, so pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So the Greeks, remember, the Greeks are people who were like um, the Spartans, you know, and these guys saw the Macedonians as barbarians. They saw them less than them, you know. Now the thing is, in 359 BC, Philip II, which was Alexander the Great's father, he took power of the Macedonian throne. And the thing is that made Philip II unique compared to his dad and some of that was that he actually admired the Greek culture. You know, Athens was doing great things with their philosophy, which we talked about before, their artwork and some of that. And Philip II was like, yeah, I love their artwork. I love their philosophy. I love their literature and things like that. And he actually wanted to unite Greece and Macedonia. But again, Greece at this time was very powerful. But things started to change after the Peloponnesian War, which we talked about in the last lesson. Now, in 338 BC, he was able to do this in the Battle of, and I'm going to kill this name, Sharioni? Shariona? Again, if you can say it better than me, awesome, but that's as good as I can do it right now. And it's near Thebes. But the thing is, they actually defeated and crushed the Greeks. And Philip II was looking at the Greeks going, hey guys, look, I know we destroyed you guys, basically, you guys are not as powerful, but I love your guys' stuff. I like your guys' style. Let's see if we can form a league and let's cooperate, work with each other, because, there's another places we can conquer, like Persia, we can attack Persia. Now, before he could do his attack against Persia and invade Asia, Philip II was actually assassinated. Yeah, and the thing is, Some people were like, okay, well, now that he's done with this visionary guy, you know, who's next? His son? And what's his son gonna do? His son's a young kid, you know, he's nothing like his father. So they kind of shrugged him off, and that was a big mistake because that son was Alexander. Now, Alexander was only 20 years old when he became king of the Macedonians, but since he was young, until his until he was 20, until he became king, his father made sure that he was ready to be king. And he took him on military campaigns and showed him, look at, okay, see these guys coming over this way, these guys coming this way. What would you do? Tell me, what would you do knowing what they have, their infantry, with the bow and arrows and all that stuff and all this stuff? What would you do? And he would basically test his son. He taught his son basic military leadership skills and tactics. So Alexander, from a young age, was very smart when it comes to war. And he used things like advantages, disadvantages, terrains, and things like that to read a battlefield and say, okay, these guys are good at this, they're good at that, we're good at this, we're good at that, they suck at this, they suck at that, we suck at this. So, how can I win the battle? What could we do? And everything from speed, strength, numbers, weapons available, and again, like I said, terrain, even weather, all that stuff played into a factor of his decisions of what to do. Okay. Now, almost immediately after his father's death, they invade the Persian Empire. And thing is, Alexander the Great was motivated by two things. One, again, avenging his father, but really a lot of it was glory. The glory of war and battle and winning and being on top, things like that. So that really pushed him. And on top of that, like I said, the avenging, getting revenge on the Persians, um, because of what they did to Athens in the past. Because again, it's one thing to be military smart right now, but also to look in the past. Because again, he studied and knew how this town was taken over by the Persians, the Egyptians, uh, the Macedonians and things like that in the past and things like. So he really studied, and he was a true student of history and military tactics. So once they took over, Persia, he basically like burned it, you know. And in 334, basically 2 years after he's became king and stuff, he entered Asia Minor with 37,000 men from both Macedonia and Greece. And he's like, we're going on tour. We are going to go and conquer territories. All right. So, like, as I was saying, if you look at this map, if you look at the in the top to the right, no, I should say to your left, because that's how you guys see it. Um, you see Macedonia. You see below it says Athens, Sparta, so that's how much territory they started off with. And in the green section, that became his territory as he conquered through. Okay, he went through Asia Minor. He went down to Egypt, Jerusalem, Babylon, went into Persia and some of that. He kept winning. Okay, he everywhere he went, bam, bam, bam. Um, he took over Pakistan, and in 326 BC, he crossed the Indus River and entered India. Now, India was kind of seen as to the people in Macedonia, Asia Minor, some of that, as like, whoa, that's way, way out there. That's like the edge of the world. You know, that's like way out there. There's probably nothing beyond that. So when he went over there and conquered, and that was probably one of his toughest battles, his toughest campaigns was in India. After that, he's like, okay, man, let's keep going. Let's keep going this way, towards the east. His men basically said, we're done. They're like, Alexander, dude, look at, we've been marching and fighting for basically 15 years. We've conquered and won so much. You conquered the known world. Dude, we're tired. We're done. You know, so his men refused to go any further, and that's where the old saying, Alexander the Great, um, you know, looked at his conquered the known world and wept because there was no more worlds to conquer. You know, that he was just like, oh, well, what do I do now? You know, because he won. He beat everybody, basically. Okay, so now as he's returning to Babylon, he's actually planning future campaigns. He's like, I know there's other places. I heard there's places up north, down south, past Egypt, southern, you know, um, and he's thinking about places to go. But when he gets to Babylon in June 323 BC, you have to remember so many years of fighting, winning, conquering, being hurt. So, again, and they have to remember these generals were not the guys who were in the back watching everyone, like how we would have military leaders. No, no, they were out in the field. They were fighting. You know. So yeah, he did have some wounds. Um, he had fever. It is documented he had a really bad fever. That's more than likely the reason why he died. But other things could be too that stuff like saying he was partying too much. And those of you guys who know, when you're sick and you're hurting, you should not be going out, staying up late, doing all this and that. You should be in bed, resting your body, things like that. But Alexander the Great didn't. So many historians believe he died of fever. Okay. And the big shocker is he died young. He was only 32 years old. And the even bigger shocker to a lot of people is this known fact is he never lost a battle. He's had like 20 major campaigns, won them all, skirmishes and all this stuff. He never lost a battle. So, thing is, Alexander the Great is dead. People were expecting it, but not at 32 years old. He was going to have this grand funeral and things like that. It was already planned. So now that he dies so young and so unexpectedly, everyone who had the was in charge of getting his funeral things together were like, "Oh, he did now? Oh man, we haven't even started on his carriage, on his tomb. We need time. How much time is it gonna take? About 2 years. 2 years? You want us to hold off his burial for 2 years? Yeah." So the thing is, Alexander the Great wanted his body to be just like the ancient Egyptians, to be mummified. So that kind of helped out the process. So while his carriage was being made by hand, his tomb was being engraved and with the special battles that he won and things like that. His body was sent down to Egypt to be treated like the pharaohs of old. So just like how I explained in that earlier video, how they mummified the bodies, they did the same thing to Alexander the Great. But here's the kicker: to preserve his body, to make sure that it didn't decay any more than it had to, they put his body in honey. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, why the hell would they put it in honey? Well, the thing is, guys, honey, believe it or not, is the only food in the world that doesn't spoil. You can get honey from the Pharaoh times and actually eat it, even though it's like 4,000, 5,000 year old. If you break it off and you get it soft enough, you can actually eat it. Yeah, it's the only food that doesn't spoil. If you don't believe me, look it up. Okay. So his body's drenched in honey. It's in a big container filled with honey. The carriage, the tomb is getting ready. They're getting this stuff all together. Finally, the carriage and tomb is done. It's ready to go. And from what people said, It's spectacular, beautiful, things like that. So they mummify his body, take out the honey, mummify it, um, and then they put in this carriage in the tomb, and they send it off to Alexandria. Here's the thing: throughout history, his body is lost. The tomb is gone. It's still lost to this day. We don't know where it's at. It could be buried underneath someone's backyard, for all we know. Well, we don't. So, yeah, it's one of those rare things in history that are completely a mystery and completely lost. It could be destroyed for all we know. So, all right. So that is the end of Alexander the Great. Now, here's your question. Alexander was known as the Great. Do you personally believe he deserves that title? Why or why not? Again, he was only king for like 15 years, maybe not even that. And he conquered, I mean, a good chunk of land, but not not, Rome conquered more, you know. Genghis Khan conquered more, but he conquered some area. But the thing is, he never lost a battle. So, in your opinion, what do you think? Does he deserve that title, the Great? Okay. So the writing prompts on there for you. I believe Alexander the Great does slash or doesn't deserve the title the Great because, and explain. Justify your answer. Okay. So once you're done with this question, you're done with this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Um, I might be making a TikTok on him later. I don't know yet. Going a little bit more in depth and stuff. But again, I hope you guys did enjoy this. Okay. Um, and like I said, hopefully you were able to understand me because I am out of breath. Again, the chemo is making me really tired. So, with that being said, guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.